Alaikum family. We are back, NationTownTV live after a long, but very important hiatus. But listen, family, we're gonna deal with that topic. Are you ready for war? Y'all been watching the news. I hope y'all been watching the news. I hope y'all been keeping up with the modern times. We're gonna get right down to the modern times and right to the point. We're gonna deal with the question: are you and I ready for war? Let's get it.
Rio, Rio, Rio.
And we back. It's your brother Landon X. This is Nation Town TV live, right down to the modern times. Listen, we got a slightly different format. We got some new things coming. We're gonna do things a little bit different and a little bit quicker as far as our topics. Because what I want to do, I want to get with the Nation Town family more often. And the way we're going to do that is by chopping it down a little bit. The topics not being so wide ranging, but dealing with very specific topics, whether it be current events or whatever the case may be. But let me start off in that proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared to us mercifully in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. Listen, family, he appeared to us in the same fashion that Almighty Abraham in your Bible walked with God, invited God to dinner, just like Moses said he talked to God just like a man talketh to his friend. I mean, if God came for Abraham, if God came and spoke to Moses like they was homeboys, what's wrong with us? What makes you think God can't come for us? That's what Master Fard Muhammad represents. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be right and exact and down to the modern times with all due love and respect for Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him. Listen. The Holy Quran made me a promise. The Holy Quran said that certainly there would be a messenger raised for every nation. Every nation. And listen, family, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but last time I checked, every nation means all of them. Each and every one. But here's the thing. I would know nothing of Master Fard Muhammad. I would know nothing of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad if it were not for the divine leadership, the divine teaching and guidance of that torchlight in our midst, that criterion in our midst. I'm speaking of none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I hope that y'all was smart enough to tune in to the Swan Song. And we're gonna talk about that on a future episode. I really want to digest it for a minute. You can't do no hot takes on the man of God in our midst. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You really can't do no hot takes. You gotta really sit back, digest it, but most importantly, act on it. But again, in those three great names, I greet you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum, family. Listen, we're gonna jump right into it. The topic that we dealing with, family, is: are you ready for war? Are you ready for war, family? Shout out to our Nation Town family. I see you, Sister Sandra. All praises due to Allah. Sister Sandra 4X, she said, I made it on time. Allahu Akbar. That's right. All praises are due to Allah. The Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan said, that's a true sign of a believer when we learn how to respect time. So all praise is due to Allah, and that's why we're gonna get right down to the point. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Sister Sandra X. All praise is due to Allah. But before we get started, make sure y'all show us some love, man. Dollar sign Nation Town. Y'all know how it goes down. This is how everything is paid for. That's how we keep the lights on. That's also how we fund the programs that we do, such as Meal and a Message, that we are able to send out a meal and a message and have community programs like what we're about to do in Bakersfield, California, very soon, bringing our Western Regional Student Minister, Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad, to the wonderful city of Bakersfield as we erect a study group and soon to be mosque in the mighty city of Bakersfield. And listen, family, y'all know y'all got to hit up NationTownStore.com. NationTownStore.com. It's your store. It's right there. Everything you need. You know we got the pies. You know we have the Eden Fresh products, which have also been revamped. I'm so excited about the new products that we have through the Eden Fresh brand, which is a brand from the believers here in the Nation of Islam. Make sure you hit that up. How can you be still washing your backside with Dove? How could you still be washing your backside or using products from companies like Estee Lauder, where their CEO, one of their main executives, just got fired for posting a racist meme on social media? How could you look yourself in the mirror and call yourself an intelligent black person and then not support your own? Listen, man, go to NationTownStore.com. We also got a special agreement with Cash App as well as the Afterpay company, where you could buy anything. You can have a order that's over, I believe, $30, and you can break it down into four payments with no interest, no usury. You could just pay four payments, break it down into four payments, pay it every other week until it's paid off. You could do that on NationTownStore.com. Shout out to Cash App and Afterpay for sponsoring that tool that makes it easier for you to support your own. And ain't no more excuses in 2022. But let's get right down to it. Now, those of you that have been watching NationTown TV for a while, shout out to the NationTown TV lifers. Those of you that have been with this for a minute, you know that when we come with a topic, we don't we don't always hit you with what you think you're going to be hit with. But let's talk about this war that we're on the brink of. Are you ready for war? Now, y'all know what's been going down in Ukraine. Y'all know what's been going down between the Ukraine and Russia as it pertains to the massive battles, the terrible conflict. See, here's what happened. Basically, for those who don't understand it, Russia, in 2014, Russia invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. And by doing that, that basically gave Russia an economic edge in the world, something that NATO was attempting to take from Russia. But the way you'll read it, if you Google it, and the way you'll see it in the news is that Russia basically invaded and annex is a nice way of saying stole, invaded and stole possession and control of the Crimean Peninsula. But listen, Nation Town TV family, I got something to admit. Uh, we're not on here to talk about Ukraine and Russia. As we on here, we're gonna make this very quick, fast, and to the point. When I say and when I ask the question, are you ready for war? Understand that I'm not talking about Ukraine and I'm not talking about Russia. No, ma'am. No, sir. It's a terrible thing going on in the Ukraine. A lot of lives being lost, homes being lost, safety and peace was the first casualty. However, that's not what I'm talking about. Are you ready for war? Which war? Which war am I talking about? I'm talking about the war that's been fought in America for over 400 years. Remember what I said about Ukraine? The Ukraine and Russian conflict started off like most wars start off in this world. They start off based on an invasion and or some kind of theft. Those are the key words: invasion, theft. Invasion, theft. They say they invaded the Crimean Peninsula and they basically commandeered it or stole it. Invasion, death. Here in America, we know something about invasion. You might have to go in your history books a little bit. You might have to go to the library and do your own independent research, but we know about invasion. Not just in America, but throughout the world, we know a little bit about invasion. Huh? Yeah, yeah. What about that theft thing? Invasion and theft. We know a little bit about theft. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we know something about invasion. We know something about theft. We know something about invasion. We know something about theft. Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, I would love to sit here and pontificate over the conflict in Ukraine and Russia and act like I'm some kind of expert on the matter. And the interesting thing about that, those who are directly involved in that conflict are not experts on the matter. I'm going to say that again. Those directly involved, Putin is not an expert on the matter. Zelensky is not an expert on the matter. If they were, then they would cede the land that they're both standing on and give it to the original inhabitants of this earth, which they both have blood on their hands. So neither one of them are experts on the matter. And I'm not talking about Ukraine. I'm not talking about Russia. I'm talking about the war that the black and aboriginal man and woman has been in the hills of North America for over 400 years. It kind of bothers me, family, that every time a major event takes place in the world, we get this we sick mentality in our community. You heard Malcolm teach on this, as was taught to him by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, that a good slave, whenever his slave master gets sick, he gets sick too. Whenever his slave master is frustrated, he gets frustrated too. They'll even come to their master and say, "What's wrong, master? Is we sick?" They catch their master coughing. They catch him sneezing. They see him with his countenance down, his shoulders slump, his head down. "What's wrong, master? Is we sick?" Let me tell you something. There are people of color, Aboriginal people, who are caught up in Ukraine and having a hard time getting out of the Ukraine because of the color of their skin. And that's a terrible tragedy. And I pray to Almighty God, Allah, that they make it out safe. But then I have to ask the question, why were they there anyway? Listen, America, black, Aboriginal America, not Americans, because that is what we are not, but America, those of us in the hills of North America. One thing I will say, do not overlook international events. That's not what I'm promoting. But when you look into what's going on the other side of the pond, ask yourself, how does that relate to what's going on here? And will that type of event, or has that type of event, made its way to our side of the globe? It has. And it will. Listen, family, we're going to get into the situation where we're going to be just like those Africans that are stuck in Ukraine, being discriminated against, being the last ones put on trains and buses and airplanes to get out of there. That's coming to America. We're going to be in that same situation. Those of us who want to use that code word, that good code word. You want to live in the good neighborhood. You want to send your children to the good schools. You want to shop at the good stores. Well, I'm telling you, Satan is casting out Satan right now. You don't want to get caught in between. But let's look at this. I meant what I said when I asked the question, are you ready for war? Because I really want to double down on this so that we can understand. We talking about invasion. We talking about theft. We've seen all of that. And let's look at I don't want you to think I'm just dancing around this, but I want you to think about war for a minute. What are some of the things that you find in any type of war or conflict? First of all, you find politics. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the first casualty of any war is the truth. So it starts with politics. Things like the Emancipation Proclamation, which you think is related to freedom, but if you look up the actual etymology of the word emancipation, you're emancipated from the grip of white supremacy the same way your remote control is emancipated from your television. You know that every time you pick up that remote and push a button, it controls what's on your television, doesn't it? That's because that remote control is emancipated from your TV, but it still absolutely controls it. Or your TV is emancipated from the remote control, but it's controlled by that remote control. I remember in the early days of cable, back in the back in the day. I'm not gonna age myself. They used to have these big clunky cable boxes that actually had a wire that connected it to the main cable box. Those days are over. They used to have remote controls to TVs. Now, this is before my time, but I've seen it. Remote controls that had a wire that connected to the television. Those days are over. The television has been emancipated from the remote control, but you can still control your health. They got apps on your phone where you can control your television and you're not even in the same city anymore. Yeah, you can put parental controls on your television or your computer and you're not even in town. See? So if that has advanced in technology, what makes you think white supremacy has not? But let's look a little bit deeper into it. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Make sure you show us some love on $Nation Town. Make sure y'all visit us on NationTownStore.com, your NationTownStore.com. But check this out, family. Let's consider this war concept. Again, it starts with politics, the casualty of truth. Situations where you're being told and you're being made to think that you're not even a human being, like the three-fifths compromise. Hmm? And then you have military operations in this war that I'm talking about. Actual military operations. Why is it? What other country on this earth, other than a war-torn country, does a child have to be escorted by the National Guard in fatigues and guns and ammunition just to go to school? That sounds like a battlefield, people. That's a battlefield. And then whenever you have a conflict, that brings about guerrilla warfare. That brings about different militias and factions from the grassroots that are fighting for whatever it is that their group of people believe in. Have we seen that in America? I think we have. Have we seen military structures pop up in America for the sake of freedom or justice or equality or all the above? I think we have. Then, just like any war, you have battles. Have there been battles? They call the event on the Edmund Pettus Bridge during the Civil Rights Movement, they called that a battle. And if you've seen the footage and the photography of it, then that's exactly what you see. What do you call it when bombs are dropped on neighborhoods and cities, like it was in 1921 in Black Wall Street? Is that not a war? Also, in this day and age, one very unfortunate staple of war is terrorism, where people commit vile and homicidal acts in order to push some kind of political or social agenda. Do we know anything about terrorism here in America? I ain't talking about 9/11. Do we know about one thing, if you remember, when America so-called went to war with Iraq? George H.W. Bush, that's Daddy Bush, he made the claim that Saddam Hussein had unleashed biological and chemical warfare on his own people, including the people of Kuwait. I think we know something about biological warfare, such as the Tuskegee experiment. I think we know something about chemical warfare, like the introduction of crack cocaine. We didn't go to South America and extract that cocaine ourselves, and we didn't learn how to cook it ourselves. Actual federal government employees did that for us. One of which was the commander in chief of the military, and one was a military general. Shout out to Big Ollie North and Big Ball and Ronald Reagan, the two biggest dope dealers in the history of the United States of America. You looking at them right there. Hmm? Another thing that you have in international conflict and war, you have what they call spies and agents and covert operations. It's real cool when we see it on movies like 007 and all these spy movies. It seems real cool. But when we look into our own organizations, we know them as stool pigeons and snitches. What do you know about people like Eugene Roberts, pictured there on the bottom left, who after Malcolm X defected from the Nation of Islam, he essentially became Malcolm X's right-hand man. He was the one that was performing CPR on Malcolm X when he was riddled with bullet holes. And anybody with the most basic medical training will tell you how much of a mistake that is. But it wasn't a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah, that's a better look at him. I mean, he looked like a snitch just right there. Autonomous agents. What do you know about people like William O'Neill? These are covert ops I'm trying to explain to you. And the way he conspired that eventually led to the murder of our brother, Fred Hampton, may Allah be pleased. See, these are the kinds of things that you got to look at. Because let me pause for a minute, family. We talk, of course, this is Nation Town. So we talk the Nation of Islam, we talk Bible and Quran. There's one particular thing. There's a lot in the Bible and the Quran that are congruent, that you can take and compare, and they're almost the same. A lot more than you think. If you've only read one, if you grew up as an Orthodox Muslim and never picked up a Bible, you probably think the Bible is some strange thing that's completely at variance with the Quran. It's not. If you grew up as a so-called Christian and you never picked up a Quran, you probably think the Quran is just some weird book that got all kind of weird stories in it. It's got the same stories from the Bible, the same characters. But there's one thing that you can find in both books that's almost identical in the word choice. And that is the concept of how God perceives time. Both books, both books clearly point out that God considers one day the way the typical man considers 1,000 years. 1,000 years to a typical average thinking man is but one day in the eyes of God. So we got to stop looking at everything as like a moment in time. You got to start stepping back and looking at the whole timeline. That's why we got to stop talking all this mess about generations. You ain't from no different generation. You're not even walking the same earth as the generations before you. Just because you ain't in high school no more, don't mean you in a different generation than somebody who's 18, 19 years old. A generation is actually technically 30 years. But even then, in the eyes of God, if you're 50 and a child is 9 years old, y'all essentially are in the same window of time. So you got to look at the whole picture. And when you look at the whole picture of the sojourn of the black man here in the hills of North America, it is absolutely a war. Let's keep it moving, family. Shout out to everybody chiming in. We see you. Show us some love. Hit us up with your questions and comments. We may or may not get time to hit it. But there's another point I want to make. Not only is there biological and chemical warfare, but there's also, and this is my favorite part about war. My favorite part about war is usually the first step that the Caucasian takes, that white supremacy takes, but it's the last step that black people take. What aspect of war is the first thing that white supremacy does and the last thing that black people do? Do you know what it is? Anybody that's watching, let me know if you know what it is. I'll give you a second. I ain't gonna sing the Jeopardy song, but time just ran out. Let me go ahead and tell you what it is. Economic sanctions. That is the first step. Pay attention to America when they start trying to tell you that some foreign nation is an enemy nation. Pay attention to the first thing they do. They cut the purse strings. Right now, what you see going on in, pardon that, family, the main thing that you see going on right now, before America even steps into, and before the rest of Europe even steps into the fray of the Ukrainian and Russian conflict, they have already began to apply sanctions I'm trying to bring up the article that I read yesterday. There it is. All praises due to Allah. They're starting to apply economic sanctions on Russia. The EU, the European Union, to freeze Putin foreign minister assets over Ukraine attack. They did the same thing after 9/11. Same thing they did during the Afghan and Iraq conflicts. Any assets that they had in the Western nations, they froze those assets. You see what's going on in Cuba. You can go to Cuba right now and you can buy a 57 Chevy and it'll run like it's 1957. Why? Because they had to learn how to keep old 50s model cars running good because they can no longer do trade with nations that produce their own cars like Asian nations and in America and Europe. So they've had to keep old 1957 model cars still running in Cuba because they have trade embargoes where they can't trade with other nations that are friends with America. So the first thing white supremacy does is that they cut the purse strings. They cut off your money. What takes black people so long to come to that point? Why do we spend so many years protesting and begging and singing and crying and we shall overcome it and all of that? When do we step back and say, wait a minute, let's cut the purse strings? Wait a minute, we have over $1 trillion in buying power, and 98% of that we give to our open enemy. At what point do we enlist some economic embargoes? At what point do we start telling them, as they are gentrifying our neighborhoods, to get out of our neighborhoods the way they were telling us to get out of their neighborhoods? Yeah, this ain't photoshopped. That ain't photoshopped. When do we start supporting our own businesses so tough that we have the gall to tell other people to stay out? And we don't even have to tell them. We can finesse it. Listen, I here in Los Angeles, I respect many of the members of the Asian community. Because in Los Angeles, you can drive around in places like Little Koreatown, and they'll have whole shopping centers where all of the signage, the signs in that shopping center, everything is in Korean. There's not even English subtitles. If it's a doctor's office, it won't even say, ping, pang, tong, bong, and then Dr. Lee, in English. No, it won't say that. It'll just say ping, tong, bong, bong. And that's it. If you can't read it, you ain't got no business being up in there. That's what they're saying. You can go on Craigslist or go looking for an apartment and you'll see ads that are all in Spanish. Basically saying if you can't read it, you ain't got no business trying to rent this apartment. I don't really see nothing wrong with that. That's fine. These people are saying that we want to do business with and live amongst our own people. There's nothing wrong with that. But what takes us so long to get there when that's the first step of white supremacy? That's the first thing they do is they cut off your purse strings. They cut off your ability to amass real wealth. They'll give you a job. Hell, that's the first thing they gave you here in America is a job. They didn't pay you very well, but that's the first thing they gave the black man when he hit the shores of Alexandria, Virginia. He gave you a damn job. And boy, the hours were crazy from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. So economic embargoes, we've had it all here, man. And I know, and you may know that in the book, Fall of America, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad made it plain. He made it plain. If you don't have this book right here, go ahead and get it. The Fall of America. But he made it plain. It made it plain as it pertains to what's going on in Europe. This book was published in the 1960s. As you can see, he says there is still the Cold War in Berlin between America and Russia and in other parts of Europe to be reckoned with. Europe will become a dreaded spot when America leaves Asia. It is true, as the prophets have predicted, that America must come out of Asia or be thrown out. That ended up happening. This was in the 60s now. The Vietnam War ended in 1975. Each America and Russia, the two most powerful war factors of this world, is seeking to maintain their rule over the nations of the earth and even to conquer outer space. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, before he started teaching on Europe and the war, the oncoming Armageddon in Europe, he was telling you about the war here in America through books like Message to the Black Man. See, war is war, business is business. You look at certain things that are broad, you will find the same components no matter where you look. Revelations 18:2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. America, the new Babylon, has fallen. But I got a question for the Nation Town TV family. As we read books like Fall of America, as you turn on your television and your news and look down your timeline and you see the fall of America right before your eyes in real time, I got a secret to tell you. It's actually been happening since before any of you were born. I don't care how old you are. If you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70, this has been going on longer than you think. But they've been playing a really good game of making it look otherwise, but now they can't cover up the stench of the corpse no more. But let me close with this. As we talk about the fall of America, we got to start asking ourselves, and I'm still on the topic of war, and I'm going to end on the topic of war. We got to ask ourselves, has America fallen in us? It's falling in the world. Its political system is falling. Its economic system is falling. Its social system is falling. Its international reputation is falling. But has it fallen in your own mind and in your own day-to-day activities? Are you still in love with America and the things that you like? Your favorite restaurant, your favorite amusement parks, the favorite clothes that some homosexual European with his name on it puts on your back. Are you still in love with America? Has America fallen in you? Has it fallen in your mind? Have you conquered America? Have you fought back in your own mind? That's where it's got to take place. That's why our brother Gil Scott Heron, when he said that the revolution will not be televised, some people still don't understand what he meant. Oh, yes, it will. If there's a revolution, of course CNN gonna catch it. If there's a revolution, of course, MSNBC is going to catch it. There's a revolution, of course, it's going to be on my Instagram timeline. No, it won't. Because they have yet to make, they working on it, but they have yet to make a camera, a network news camera that can catch the images of your thoughts in your mind and in your spirit. And I don't think they ever will. Because that's where the real war is taking place. And in the Holy Quran and in Islam, they have a name for that war. It's called jihad. The last time America had a conflict with a so-called Muslim, and I say so-called Muslim nation because the only nation that can really claim to be a nation of Islam other than the Nation of Islam, the only foreign nation that can really make that claim right now, as of today, is the Republic of Iran. Because they are the closest thing to a theocracy, meaning a government rooted in the will of Almighty God Allah. But the last time we had conflict with Muslim nations, we never stopped as America, excuse me for saying we, but them, I should say, you heard that word jihad on the television. When there's a so-called terrorist attack, you hear jihad. But if you study Islam and you study Arabic, not only is jihad about an intense struggle, but the most precise definition of jihad is what's also known as jihad al-akbar, jihad al-akbar, which is the greatest jihad, which is the jihad of self, which is essentially self-improvement. which of course is the basis of community development. So I know we watching the news, we watching our timelines, and we seeing the terrible things going on in the Ukraine. Satan is casting out Satan. It was prophesied. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been teaching us this for years, that this was coming. He taught on this conflict that's going on in Ukraine and Russia in 1981, almost verbatim by what's actually going on right now, because he learned it from his spiritual father, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But see, it doesn't matter what Ukraine does, what Russia does, what America does. What matters is what they do in you. Do they still have a pull on you? Is their culture, their way of life? Listen, man, we beyond the time of just holding up a fist and saying Black Power and having a T-shirt with Malcolm's face on it, or just walking around saying we believe in this and we down with that. No, no. See, another phenomenon that's going on in Ukraine right now is that you have athletes like the Klitschko brothers, the boxers, who have put aside sport and play. You even got athletes and celebrities on the Russian side who have put aside entertainment and sport and play, and they're getting suited and booted to join the military to fight for their nation. Now, I'm not saying you should do that for America. Hell no. But what are you willing to give up or to take on for a nation of your own? I mean, they ready to jump in front of mortar rounds. They ready to step on a minefield in some mountain somewhere on the border of Russia and Ukraine. They ready to do that. They ready to put aside millions of dollars in fame to go blast off an AK-47. What are we willing to do here in America? And I'm not talking about hurting nobody. I'm not talking about no violence. Are you just willing to say, you know what? I'm not going to get that fish sandwich unless I can get it from a black-owned place. And if I can't find a black-owned place to sell the fish sandwich, I'm just not going to have a fish sandwich today. Can you even say that? Some of us, you can't even temper your appetites enough to support your own. Yeah, yeah. You can't even temper your own vanity enough to support your own. Oh, I was shopped there, but they ain't got the new polo. They ain't got the new Jordans. Jordan gets like 3% of the profits from the Jordan brand, even though it got his name on it, or is that his name at all? See, these are the questions we got to ask ourselves. May Allah guide everybody involved with the Ukraine conflict. May Allah watch over the young, black, Hispanic, Native American, and even Caucasian, poor Caucasians that are going to be sent to the front lines of this conflict. May Allah guide the Africans and some of the Indians and Asians that are caught up in Ukraine and can't get out. It's an American pro basketball player that's trying to get out of Ukraine and he can't. There's a WNBA player who just got arrested in Russia. And now, because of this Russian Ukrainian conflict, that's making it even more difficult for her to be able to come home. So my prayers are with them, but here in America, we got to ask ourselves about the internal war that Jihad al-Akbar is going through us. Are we ready? Are we ready? Because that's what Ukraine is saying. Ukraine is saying to Russia, listen, we don't care how many bombs y'all drop, how many soldiers y'all send. We don't want to be a part of no version of the Soviet Union. We are not in the red machine no more. We have separated. We down with NATO now. That's what they saying. And then on the Russian end, the Russians are saying, listen, we got to reunify the Soviet machine. And y'all gonna do it whether y'all like it or not. We gotta do it. So in essence, I agree with both sides. One is talking about separation, the other is talking about unity. It's a time to kill, it's a time to do all these things. You know what? It's a time for unity and it's a time for separation. That's what we can learn from Ukraine. That's what we can learn from Russia. Family, I told you this was gonna be quick and right to the point. And this is lightning fast for NationTown TV. Listen, family, thank y'all for tuning in. We're going to be back Saturdays. Circle that on your calendar. Saturdays now, with my schedule that has shifted, Saturdays are the most uh, comfortable days for me to go live and hit a point and get right to it. But before we get out of here, if y'all remember, the last episode was regarding the mosque pittle, and I'm still on that hospital run. Listen, to all the family that is here in Los Angeles, NationTown family, or NationTown family in any city that has a Muhammad mosque, Nation of Islam mosque or study group, the Hospital Challenge still stands. The NationTown Hospital Challenge is as follows. This is especially for non-registered brothers and sisters only. If you are a registered Muslim and you haven't been to the mosque in a while, this challenge is for you too. Go to your local mosque, man. Go and show love to your nation. Do like the Klitschko brothers are doing for Ukraine. They getting suited and booted all the way. You can at least visit your brothers and sisters. Attend your local NOI mosque this Sunday. Each mosque has a sign-in procedure. In this sign-in procedure, put Landon X and or Nation Town, and with the ID 157491 in the invited by section of the form. Photograph the slip if you want to. Take a selfie of yourself outside the mosque. Email the above info at NationTownTV at Gmail or NationTown on Facebook, and you will get a free NationTownStore.com product of your choice. Of your choice. Because it's that hospital challenge, man. For those in the LA area, you already know. You already know. Now, that's not the updated address. That is not the updated address. The actual address that we are meeting at now in Los Angeles, 8039 South Vermont in Los Angeles, 8039 South Vermont in Los Angeles. But whatever city that you're in, visit your local study group or mosque. If you don't know where your local study group or mosque is in your city, hit us up on Facebook at NationTown TV. Send us a direct message and we will hit you up, or go to NationTown TV. Send an email to NationTownTV at gmail.com and we will do the research for you and let you know exactly where your closest local Nation of Islam mosque or study group is, and take that hospital challenge, man. It's time to check ourselves into that hospital, because we all sick. We all sick. Again, my prayers are with those who are going through any inner or exterior conflict. We all at war. There is no peacetime. There is no peacetime unless you realize it's time to find Islam, which in Arabic means peace and submission to Almighty God Allah. That's the only way we can find peace in this hour. Listen, thank you for listening. I'm your brother Landon X, NationTown TV live right down to the modern times. And I'm going to leave you as I greeted you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Rio, Rio, Rio.